I've always brought brain science and the whole study of neuroscience into my life because worked as a paediatric neurologist. I still am a paediatric neurologist, but I worked in the NHS for 25 years as a paediatric neurologist. One of the things I was always fascinated by, curiously enough, was not disease, but to start with understanding how a healthy brain works first, and then add disease on top of that, because then you get a clear understanding of the functions that should be there in health, and it's then you get a much clearer picture when you're looking for the absence of those functions. So you look for the absence of functions or derangement of functions rather than only look for that. And certainly I've always found in my life as a clinician that was a powerful diagnostic tool. I've always done music as well, and for me music is part of healing. So my third stream in all this has been healing myself, and a path of self-discovery, where self-discovery means releasing the parts of you that became like they were because you needed to be like that for other people, but actually it wasn't really you. What I call masks. I'm sure you're all familiar with the term masks, or false selves. And those false selves are formed because you combine nerve cells together into patterns, and those patterns become hardwired into your brain. So you become hardwired to be that false self given that behavioral circumstance or that environmental circumstance. If you unlearn those, you literally break the connections between the nerve cells, and you regain those nerve cells. You haven't lost them, they're still there. You then regain them to reintegrate them or integrate them into the whole person, into the self you feel harmonic with and is your true self. In my case, that's taken 40 years. But studying neurobiology in parallel to being a pediatric neurologist and my own path of self-discovery has been incredibly powerful because it's taken all the mystique and all the magic out of it. It's just cells and neurochemistry. That's all it is. Yes, it's hard work. Yes, you feel awful if you've done some hard work. Yes, you'll need counselors, sometimes antidepressants, do a lot of reading, all those things. But it is possible for you, for me, to actually disconnect those connections and re-establish new connections which are now harmonic with yourself rather than disharmonic. And that all carries through into the music, where in my life's path I've always written music, and everything I write is pretty much what I've lived. There are some that are adapted, but mostly they're pretty much what I've lived. And actually, curiously, if somebody else out there has written a song that already says what I was wanting to say, I don't write that song because it's already there in the world. So there's a very, very beautiful Bruce Springsteen song called Wreck on the Highway. I was living in Derry in Northern Ireland, and was driving back home in the pouring rain in pitch black night. And I drove around the corner and there was the wreck on the highway with the guy lying injured at the side of the road and his car trashed against a tree. And I'm a doc, I stopped and helped him till the ambulance arrived. And I've always sung that song as a cover because I've lived it. So I do very few, any cover I sing is because I've lived it, but someone's already written the song in the way I would want to write it. Music, both from literature research and also from the presence of music therapies, has a very powerful effect on the brain. And I think we lose that in the scientific thought process. I think they just can't see it, and therefore they don't bother really researching it. There is a lot of good neuroscience research which tells us exactly what goes on in the brain when you're listening to music, when you're playing music, when you're experiencing music. One of the things that hasn't yet been explored, but which is a hypothesis of mine, is we do have a structure in the brain called the raphe nucleus, which produces the chemical serotonin, which you'll all have heard of, which is the feel-good or stop you feeling depressed neurochemical. The raphe nucleus has actually been shown to be rhythmic. And I wonder, is the reason we love rhythmacy, and of course, an awful lot of music in more primitive people doesn't have instrumentation, it just has rhythm and voice. And I have a suspicion that the reason rhythm is so appealing to us is that it actually triggers the raphe nucleus to produce serotonin, and that produces a feel-good feeling with it and relaxes it if it's 60 beats per minute. It's 120 beats per minute, it's more exciting, so other organs get brought into that and we become more excited. It's 160 beats per minute, we think we're having a heart attack and it's too much, unless you're banging lots of illegal stuff down your throat. So it all ties into our understanding of neurobiology. The rhythm to generate response in those really basic survival structures in the brain, the melody to produce emotional response in the higher up areas, and you can adjust your melody to produce the effect you want. So one of the great things about writing a song is to write a relatively upbeat song with a sad message, because the rhythm is making the person feel able to deal with the sad message, and that's healing. And I think that a good song, well written, has more healing in it than any drug a doctor has ever prescribed. So I come from a business background. My father's a businessman, and I actually sat in board meetings from the age of 6 because he wanted us to learn about business and how it works. Business, I think at the moment, has a desperate need to develop a broad ethical concept of how they work as leaders within business, and how they work as leaders in society, because so much of society is, by the very nature of the fact business permeates society, driven by how business wants society to be driven. It has to be said, an awful lot of that is totally amoral and unethical, and I have no tolerance of it. What there is now available is the neurobiological knowledge to support business in becoming ethical individuals who grow emotionally within the business environment, where they are experiencing a joyful, expressive, compassionate business environment, which is massively successful. So it still brings in the dosh and does all the rest of it, but doesn't screw the planet or individuals in the same way as is happening now. And I think the neurobiology combined with music into a whole show gives as a novel scenario, a totally unique scenario for business people who, let's face it, at the end of the day, are just human beings with their emotions and their personal lives and all the rest, and allows them a freedom to start thinking about business as an emotionally engaging but expansive thing, not a restricted focus on tiny outcomes like profit. I'm not decrying profit. If you're a business, you need to make profit. If you don't make profit, you don't pay taxes. You don't pay taxes, governments can't run the country. So the whole thing has to work together. The issue we have is if you remove business from emotional caring, from the neurobiology, from things like appreciation of music, you become solely profit driven. You will not create happy work environments. You will, in fact, lower life expectancy, almost certainly, of you and all the people you're working with. And I think we need to explore with business, look guys, let's all grow together with this new understanding we have. The show is about that. It's about celebrating emotionality through the music, combined with the hard neuroscience of what it takes to grow in yourself and to become a successful leader who helps people grow with them.